Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolute masterclass in crisis management from the ancient epic, the Mahabharata. We're going to look closely at a desperate counselor who is trying to pull his king back from the absolute brink of destruction. It's a dilemma that, honestly, still resonates with leaders today. So would you sacrifice your own child to save your empire? Let's dive right into this crazy dilemma. We're looking at King Dhritarashtra, a monarch standing on the very edge of ruin after a disastrous gambling match. The stakes literally could not be higher here. He is forced to weigh the life of his own son against the survival of his entire empire. All right, Section 1, Bitter Medicine. Now, check out how these exceptionally harsh words are framed. It's not just a thoughtless insult, right? The advice is explicitly presented as a desperately needed, incredibly bitter cure. I mean, think about it. When a patient is literally about to breathe their last breath, you don't offer them sweets. You give them the medicine that might actually save their life, no matter how awful it tastes. It's just a brilliant, timeless leadership lesson on why we have to embrace hard truths. And the guy delivering this bitter medicine? That's Vidura. In the text, he's known as the dispeller of all doubts. You know that one brutally honest friend who tells you what you actually need to hear, not what you want to hear? That's Vidura. His urgent warning to the king is, for sure, an absolute masterclass in speaking truth to power. Moving on to Section 2, the hidden jackal. Here, Vidura hits the king with a seriously chilling metaphor. He reminds him that right after his son Duryodhana was born, the infant cried discordantly, exactly like a jackal. Now, in this ancient context, that was an undeniable, flashing red light omen of destruction. Vidura is essentially saying, hey, you have a wild, destructive beast living in your house, just disguised as your son. It's a pretty stark reminder of how leaders can completely turn a blind eye to toxic elements right inside their own organizations. To really drive this point home, Vidura brings up a metaphor from the poet Sukra about a honey collector. Picture a guy climbing these insanely dangerous, precarious mountain heights just to get some honey. He is so completely laser-focused on this prize that he doesn't even realize he's about to step right off a cliff. He falls, and it's total destruction. Vidura's point? Duryodhana, who's completely maddened by this dice game, is exactly like that honey collector. He's so blinded by his immediate, short-term goals that he's totally oblivious to the massive fatal drop staring him right in the face. So Vidura proposes a brutal, clear-eyed trade-off. He looks at the rival faction, the Pandavas, and likens them to glorious peacocks and fierce tigers. But his own king's son, just a lowly crow and a scavenger jackal, he practically begs the king to make a transaction. Trade the crow for the peacocks, trade the jackal for the tigers. It is a desperate, desperate plea for objective valuation over blind, destructive attachment. Which brings us to Section 3, the price of greed. To really illustrate this, Vidura tells this kind of bizarre story about a king who somehow got his hands on wild birds that literally vomited gold. I mean, what an incredible asset, right? But instead of just sustainably collecting this wealth over time, the greedy king completely gives in to temptation. He kills all the birds at once because he wants all the gold right that very second. And this perfectly captures the terrible trap Vidura is warning against. By slaughtering those birds, that king destroyed both his present and his future gains, all out of this foolish desire for immediate profit and enjoyment. Vidura draws a direct parallel here. He's warning Dhritarashtra, do not prosecute your rivals just because you want a quick win. Because if you do, you're going to end up repenting, exactly like that foolish king standing over a pile of dead golden birds. To prove this isn't just theory, Vidura actually lays out a historical timeline. He reminds the king of a time when various tribes actually joined forces to abandon a toxic leader named Kansa. And what happened when Kansa was finally overthrown for the greater good? They got a century of happiness, a full 100 years of peace. Vidura is practically pleading with the king to follow this exact historical precedent. Abandon your unworthy son and just let your kingdom thrive. Let's dive into Section 4, Mathematics of Sacrifice. This is where we see a truly stunning escalation. It's this ancient, terrifyingly pragmatic formula that basically demands sacrificing the smaller part to save the greater whole. Listen to this progression. For a family, sacrifice a member. For a village, sacrifice a family. For a province, sacrifice a village. And finally, for the sake of one's own soul, the whole earth may be sacrificed. It's wild, right? It urges the king to cut off a diseased limb to save the entire body. It's a brutal, cold calculus of leadership and survival.
And he reminds the king, again, this isn't just some harsh, abstract theory. This is the exact wisdom that the ancient, omniscient Kavya used to convince the great Asuras, these powerful mythological beings, to completely abandon the demon Jumba the exact moment he was born. So this logic of preemptive sacrifice, it actually has divine, deeply established backing.
All right, our final section. Number 5, flowers versus fire. The Tura gives the king one last powerful contrast. He begs him to act like a wise flower seller. Someone who gently plucks flowers day by day with affection, making sure the garden actually keeps blooming. But the alternative? A fire-producing breeze that scorches everything all the way down to the roots, turning it all into black charcoal. By giving in to his son's madness, the king isn't harvesting anything. He is literally burning his entire world to the ground.
So he leaves the king with this incredibly stark final warning. He says, "Do not take your sons and your troops and march into the region of Yama, the god of death." And then he poses a rhetorical, frankly terrifying question. Who is actually capable of fighting with the sons of Pritha together? The Pandavas are so unbelievably formidable that Vidura flat out states not even the chief of the Celestials could defeat them. To fight them is essentially to march directly into the arms of death.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a rather haunting question to chew on. You see, Vidura's ancient plea isn't just about some king in a mythological past. It's a timeless warning about the hidden dangers we tolerate and the long-term assets we destroy just out of pure greed. So evaluate the short-term temptations in your own life. Who is the jackal in your house, and what flowers are you scorching to the root? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep seeking clarity.